Hello and welcome back to another episode of Signature Customs and yet another episode on the Rolls Royce of Doom. So on Friday I went up to Sheffield to watch Naka-san build an RWB, which was quite interesting. On the way back I took a little detour via the West Midlands, the Black Country, to see Ant, who's the guy I had the engine and the chassis off, with the intention of picking up Gearbox, which I did, and I'll show you that later. But as you probably gathered from the other day, the chassis really needs some looking into. So I just basically pulled the engine out of the chassis, which has no real mean feat, to be honest. That's quite an achievement in itself, I think. But gives you an idea of what I'm working with. We've got some oiling system, which is for all the gubbins, which is driven by the driver or pushed by the driver when it's on. That's easy to relocate. Obviously, we've also got some stuff for the suspension and also this brace, which runs all the way the length of the car pretty much. So obviously we want to keep that in place and we want to keep suspension in place. But I need to make some mounts for the engine. So I'm going to clean all this up so that we've got the position to mount the engines. And then the engine itself is now sat in a little crate that, again, Ant's had. So this was made by Johnny, I believe, over in Belgium. And yeah, to all intents and purposes, this is a little crate that was made for it many, many moons ago. So yeah, I can use that, which is fantastic. So I'm just going to tack weld that in so it doesn't go anywhere. I did have to cut it to get it back, hence the slightly over-exuberant welds on the end. This isn't supposed to be pretty, so this is just doing the job. But that's that. Onwards and upwards. Or backwards, it seems a little bit at the moment, but there we go. So, gearbox. I had a Phantom 1 gearbox, which I might have showed you already. The car's a 2025. From speaking to the guy who built the engine, he had designed it to go on a 2025 gearbox. The fact that it's a 2025 chassis makes sense to me because it will put the gear stick in the right place and things like that, which I just think is quite nice and relatively important. I have no idea what the thing's like, to be honest. It's sat there for years, so this is going to need a rebuild in one way, shape or form. This is all very new to me. I'm not a gearbox person. They frighten the living daylights out of me, but that's all part of the challenge. This lot on the one side here is a servo to assist mechanical brakes, which, bearing in mind that we're going to have an aero engine in it, I think is probably sensible to have. I'm not going to bore you with this. This is cleaning, so I'm just going to clean out, sort of start cleaning this area out and see what we're left with. I will remove the oiling system, just because I will, but I need to just have a look and see how that all connects and where it goes. There looks to be an amazing elaborate system going through the end of the spring there. So just going to clean up the arches, just going to clean up the chassis inners themselves. Possibly a little bit of an executive decision. I've decided to try and undo all these bolts on the oiling system because whatever happens, I'm going to have to relocate it. This is pretty much exactly where my engine mount's going to sit. So I'm going to clean all this out and get rid of everything and do everything. I'm sure it won't come undone, but there is a little bit of oil in there, so you never know your luck. So far, so good. Every single one of these nuts and bolts and connections for the lubricating system have come out without twisting the brake lines or the equivalent of the brake lines, without damaging anything. And I'm finding that fascinating because if I did that on a 1980s car, they'd just twist and just all go to shit. So I cannot believe they've all come out so easily. While I'm in here, I'm undoing any sort of bolts that, if I'm honest, don't do anything. There's nothing on the back of them, there's nothing on the front of them. They're just bolts going through the chassis, which gives me loads more holes to work with, which I think is actually quite important that we've got that. So yeah, I'm going to undo all these and then we can start properly cleaning. I think that's all the extra nuts out of the way. and everything pretty much brushed back. So quite pleased with that. I'm going to just give it a quick whiz over with the Rolex on the top of the chassis as well, and just get it all cleaned up. I make reference to Rolex quite a lot. So these are my Rolex. These are a polycarbonate disc for removing paint and rust. They don't remove steel. Use them in a die grinder, and I treat the material with Phosclean B, which is a phosphoric acid from Rustbuster. So I've started cleaning out all the chassis, so it's a bit more just workable. Yeah, it's clean, it's usable in it, let's be honest. So this has had literally the Rolex and then Rustkiller Rolex, just one little go over. I've removed the connections for the brace at the bottom, which are just 4 bolts, so they've all come out, and then I've had a look at starting to make some engine mounts. I'm going to use a similar shape here as the brace for holding on the spring, but I'm going to double it, so my engine mount is going to sit somewhere between here and here. So somewhere between these two, it will come out here as the engine mount. I'm not too sure exactly where I want to mount the engine at the moment, because I'm just not. So I want it to be as far forward as possible, but I don't want it to foul the carburettor on the grille. I've made these little pieces in cardboard. I'm going to trim these edges down. I'll clean these up and make these a little bit neater, but then I'm going to come off with a piece that comes right the way through here, and that will give me you know, the basis of a mount, so that I've got something that mounts on both sides. I've got something that mounts top and bottom and sides. I'm going to bolt them in, and then a complete overkill, I'm quite sure. You know, at the end of the day, the suspension's basically held in by 4 bolts, you know, roughly the equivalent of 8 mils, so they're hardly strong. These are going to be massively over that, so I don't think the engine's actually that heavy. Back again on cleaning duty, driver's side now. That's right side, just in case you're in the US or wherever. So I've taken all the lines out again. I've taken all the nuts and bolts out. The only thing I've left in is the mount for the suspension, just because I think that's a really good point to keep. The ones next to it I've just dropped down, and at the back there I've kept those ones in as well, just below where the steering box is. So all this has got to be cleaned up like I've done on the other side. I can hear lots of people screaming at the screen, telling me off for scraping with a screwdriver. Just to clarify, in this modern age, it used to be a screwdriver, but it now identifies as a scraper cum miniature pry bar, because I can't find my miniature pry bar, so I'm using that. And it's quite happy with that. Don't know what its pronouns are, but it's no longer a screwdriver. It may at some point in the future decide to re-identify itself as a screwdriver, but I'm not too sure. So I just thought I'd clarify that in case I upset somebody and you decided to stop watching. Quick over the wire wheel, just to get that oily grap off really. Yeah, next one really, I'm just going to wipe it over with some thinners, try and get the majority of that oily rubbish off, and then I'll give it a go over with the Rolex just to see how clean we can get it prior to giving it a phosphate clean and coat. Decided to continue with the progress down the chassis rails, so I've taken the steering box off, just 2 bolts holding that off. I'll also take the what were the original gearbox mounts. I'll take those out so that we've got a clean run all the way through, including some of the mounts on the sides, which are just for the old wooden edges to the chassis. We'll take those all off. We'll keep all of these, obviously. To coin a phrase from my friend Chris from Bracket Factory, there is a lot of elbow grease going into this, and it probably doesn't look like it, but this chassis, I've done most of the major sections, and there is just getting to the point where there's no rust in it at all, and it is just bare steel. There's obviously some pitting where things have sat and so on, but we're getting into that pitting. This is all done with chemicals, there's no abrasives used here. So the idea is to keep as much steel as possible. On the top, it's actually really tidy here, it's beautiful. Anyway, so that's been going on. A lot of work, very boring, but lots of work. In amongst all that, I've also been making some brackets for the engine. So here, I'm just about to tack these together. This is another adventure for me because I've never really TIG welded. I have got a TIG welder, in fact I've got two. I've got a massive Miller dial arc that I inherited from somebody years ago. Never really got the hang of it, it's just a little bit sort of, it's probably too good really, it doesn't do any idiot settings. So I've bought one that does idiot settings and hopefully they'll work. So I'm not going to film me doing it because it's going to be embarrassing for the first bit. TIG welding's seen as being difficult for a reason, and that is because it's hard. So this is very much a case of teaching myself as I go. Well, that's the first time I've used my TIG welder in anger. I just tacked it originally and then I've just filled it in. Obviously it's I haven't used any filler rod. I will do on the other side now. I've got that all set up so I can pull it out now, and then I can, once it's cooled down, I can pull it out and make it all solid. It's got quite an engine to actually. So yeah, go from there. I'm quite pleased with that though. Well, that crusty bit at the front is what we started with, and basically just using chemicals and a little bit of elbow grease, we've got it back the whole length, right the way back to the seat, we're going to call it. It's not going to be the seat, but the seat is pretty much in bare metal now. So that can pretty much be treated. I'm going to do the insides as well, obviously. That's really where we started from. The other side, as you've already seen, is pretty close, but we're going to get this all exactly the same. So it's uniform. I'm not in any desperate hurry to do this. I am cracking in with it, but I'm not in any desperate hurry. So I'm just going to plow into it and get where we get to. So now that that is cleaned up as I want it, I've just put a layer of what is to all intents and purposes copper weld through primer. I use this a lot. It's clean, it protects the metal, and it's fairly resilient on the metal, so you can wipe it and stuff if you get crap on it. It allows you to weld, obviously, so there's bits on the top where the engine's been let in that we're going to have to get in. So I use this Pro XL Weld C, or weld through primer, and I use it on pretty much everything. When it comes to cleaning metal back, doing metal work, it just allows me to see where I've been. Right, as is often the case on these things, I've got a little bit carried away with this and maybe lost sight of what I'm actually trying to do. So I think that'll be quite a common theme. As you can see, the chassis rails on the outside are pretty much there. The other side's pretty much done. Loads on the inside as well, just to try and get it all clean, and I've done the same on the inside of this one. Obviously where the mounts are for the braces underneath, I haven't done those. They all need taking off, and also for the front springs. But I sort of concentrating on doing this, and it's messy and horrible, and it's all acid, so it's all hydrochloric acid, which is why it's reactive with everything on the floor. And like I say, I've probably lost a bit of sight as to what I'm trying to do, which is to get that thing there into here. My next job, I think, is to weld these up. So clean these up and weld these up on both sides. We're not going to mount it through the frame like it was before. I just don't like that idea. I don't want to weld to the frame because I want to just incorporate holes that are already there in terms of mountings. And once I've done that, I'm waiting for some 6mm plate to arrive. I've got some, but I'm just waiting for some to arrive from over the road, and then I can start hopefully making these mounts in earnest. So the idea with the mounts is, I will tidy this up at some point. So the idea with the mounts is, I think, is I'm going to use the ones that are already on there, because they're actually pretty good and seem to do the job, and they're all in and blah, 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 blah. These sections used to go into the chassis, and I suppose the idea was they welded in or whatever. There's a couple of things I don't like about that. One, I don't want to weld into the chassis. Two, is the fact that they go underneath the body. They're held together, they go underneath the engine and sort of block off things like this here. But also there's two mounts that you might be able to see there. One there and one there. Can you see it? And where's the thing? It's, oh, take my word for it, there's one there. Okay, that one there. I don't like the idea of those being hidden. I don't actually know what they're for, but I don't like the idea of them being hidden underneath the engine mounts. I think I'd also like to brace the engine mounts over the top, prettify them a little bit. This is going to be seen, I guess, because there's going to be quite a lot of attention on the engine, I would guess. You know, I don't suppose you put an engine like this in a car and not get its attention. Although it will have a body around it, it's going to be open a bit, I guess. The other thing we have to do is centralise it. I want the chassis centralised so that this is central. That's quite key to me because I'm very aesthetic, and if that's off, it's going to look awful. So it's off in the frame at the moment, and that drives me nuts. I'm quite OCD in that respect. If I can get the engine in, then I can begin to think about getting it running. Yeah, just starting to get set here. So I've cleaned these up a bit. I've made from a length that's sort of the right length, the longest one, scribed, cut, and then sectioned it to go in. Like I say, I am very much a TIG virgin, so I've changed my machine to something massively simple in the greater scheme of things, and I'm just going to try and learn as I go. So this is more or less 4mm, whatever that is in imperial, I have no idea. That's it's quite thick. So I've got plenty of meat to play with. Just want to get this tidied up in the first place. So it's cut. I then have this in place here, and now slide through, and that gives me, if I can feel on the bottom, it's totally flat. Cleaned up a bit of rod. I've got my different glasses on. Don't get old, whatever you bloody do. These are literally reading glasses, so I can actually see what I'm doing. So some very different reactions there to that, in the sense that the top one here, I couldn't really see, if I'm totally honest, so I couldn't see there. And then this one here is a bit more consistent, and I just needed to fill the ends in. And this one here, I got it an awful lot hotter. I suppose there's an argument it might be too hot here, and there's a little bit of contamination and stuff in there, which I guess comes from the holes. I'm going to do one of these at a time and see if I can get a better finish on each one. The main aim of this is literally to do it with a relatively small amount of distortion. Obviously I can planish it if I need to, but the idea is to get a relatively small amount of distortion so we don't end up with all that. Obviously fill the gaps so it looks as factory as possible, and yeah, it's just a bit of a practice with the old TIG welder, really. As part and parcel of this, I want to teach myself how to TIG. And, you know, valuable lesson just there, I think, is the fact that I need to be able to see. I think it's fair to say I probably got the second or third run too hot, probably the first run not hot enough. Yeah, so it's going to be a massive lesson. I'll get the compressor on, and I will basically use the die grinder just to get this back. So I think I'm happy with that. I mean, I know where it is, but it's pretty neat and tidy. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that as a first real go. Just another 7 to go now. I'm not sure if these are getting better or worse, but I've done the 3. I left a little bit of overhang just so I could get the ends. I've got plenty of penetration, quite pleased with that. So I've done the 3 now, plenty of heat in that one, probably too much heat in that one. The other one's a bit more uniform here, which I think is better. And this one I had to go back and add some bits because of the holes here, just the edges of the holes sort of dip down a bit. But yeah, it's first attempt, you know, look, I really don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just trying to make sure that it's strong and fills the holes, and ultimately it looks right. So I'm quite pleased with how this has come out. It's, you know, fair to say it's pretty good. I'm not, you know, we're not looking for perfection here. This has got little bits. In fact, I can probably do with putting some imperfections in it with a needle thing, you know, like a needle must remover, just to give it some texture. But I'm pretty pleased with that on the what will be the driver's side. So I'm quite sure that most of this seems pretty trivial. Welding up a couple of holes in a chassis is hardly big news, is it? However, for me, this is the first work that we've done on really any of these sort of YouTube builds I'm gonna do. I do that a lot, by the way, is refer to myself as plural, which is a bit weird. So excuse me for doing that, but I do it quite a lot. Anyway, the videos that we're going to do, the videos I'm going to do are about building these cars. They're I like to say keepers. They're not, you know, they're cars. I don't get too emotionally attached to them. And we're going to be building these, and it's going to be a journey for me. Anyway, it may seem fairly insignificant. However, doing some actual welding, some actual repair work, as opposed to taking things apart and cleaning them and just looking at them, is quite significant. So the fact that I've got these chassis rails welded up, there's 8 little bits that have gone in. They've gone in really nice. We've got good penetration. They're nice and neat. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. And now we can move on to the engine mounts. Onwards with the mounts. And yeah, just wanted to sort of put that across. It's a significant thing. Yeah, I'm doing various fits on various cars at the same time. I'm doing cleaning out the camper, which, as I've said, is a horrible job, and I just keep doing. God, you can only do 15 minutes at a time, 20 minutes at a time, or half an hour maximum, even with a mask on. It's just an assault on your body. And I've got other stuff I do as well. Obviously, I've got some customer work and so on and so forth, a few other bits and bobs that I do. So I don't just sort of hit this. This isn't a job. It's not even designed to make money in any way. It's just really a record for myself as to what we've actually done and achieved. My 356, you know, I've got very little record of that. So I don't do forums because they tend to be pretty vicious and horrible and not very nice places to be. Yeah, pictures don't really tell the story, do they? So you can't do stupid things like this and interact and whatever. So anyway, long story short, let's get on with the engine mounts, and they will come together gradually, I'm quite sure. So that pretty much wraps up this week's episode. If you want to see how we get on with the engine mounts, you're going to have to tune in next time. Thanks for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe.